The entire planet is essentially one massive organism, he explained to the assembled commanders. Individual ships and platforms are just extensions of the central consciousness. If we can disrupt that connection, the entire defense network becomes uncoordinated. How do we disrupt a planetary consciousness? General Volkov asked. Information overload, Thompson suggested. We've been feeding them false intelligence for weeks. What if we hit them with so much contradictory data that their collective mind can't process it all? Captain Torres was studying star charts of the Devourer home system. The approach routes are heavily defended. We'd lose half our fleet just getting close enough to engage. Then we don't use the approach routes, Rivers said. We come from somewhere they don't expect. The final battle plan was audacious even by human standards. The joint fleet would hide in the gravity well of a nearby black hole, using the extreme gravitational field to mask their energy signatures. When the Devourers least expected it, they would emerge and strike directly at the homeworld's core. This is insane, Engineer Bren said when he saw the navigation calculations. The gravitational stresses alone could tear our ships apart. Then we better build them stronger, Torres replied. 3 days before the assault, Ambassador Thane found Rivers alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Are you certain this will work? Rivers didn't answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. No, but it's our best chance to end this war permanently. And if you're wrong, then the galaxy learns from our mistakes and finds another way. That's how progress works. Someone has to be willing to take the first step into the unknown. Thane's crystalline form reflected the starlight as he considered this. Your species is remarkable. You face impossible odds with such confidence. Not confidence, Rivers corrected. Necessity. We've learned that when the only choice is between fighting and dying, you fight, even when the odds are against you. The final assault would begin at dawn. The gravity well of the black hole twisted space and time around the hidden fleet. Admiral Chen, promoted to lead the final assault, watched her instruments carefully as they maintained position in the impossible environment. The gravitational forces that should have destroyed their ships were being countered by alien technology that the humans still barely understood. Fleet status report, she ordered. All ships holding position, reported her operations officer. The Devourer home system shows no indication they've detected us. It had taken 6 hours to navigate into the black hole's gravity well using techniques that combined human daring with alien precision. Now they waited in a place where no sane military commander would ever look for an enemy fleet. Begin final phase deception operations, Chen commanded. Across the galaxy, automated systems began broadcasting the largest disinformation campaign in recorded history. False fleet movements appeared on Devourer sensors in dozens of systems. Phantom armies materialized near every major stronghold. To the collective consciousness, it appeared that humanity had somehow multiplied its forces 100-fold. Dr. Krell monitored the enemy response from his station aboard the flagship. The collective is fragmenting, he reported with excitement, and they're trying to respond to threats in 17 different systems simultaneously. How long before they realize it's all fake? General Volkov asked. Based on their decision-making? Patterns, at least for hours, Dr. Krell calculated. More than enough time for what we need to do. Admiral Chen studied the holographic display showing the Devourer homeworld. The planet itself was a massive crystalline structure, pulsing with energy as it coordinated the activities of millions of ships throughout the galaxy. Orbital platforms surrounded it like a metallic shell, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. All ships, prepare for emergence, Chen announced. The joint fleet began its climb out of the black hole's gravity well. Human engines, enhanced. With alien power systems, strained against forces that could crush planets. The navigation was so precise that they emerged from their hiding place exactly where the attack plan required, directly above the Devourer homeworld's North Pole. Emergence complete, the navigation officer reported. We have achieved total surprise. For exactly 37 seconds, the most heavily defended system in the galaxy had no idea it was under attack. All ships execute Plan Omega, Chen ordered. The first wave was pure kinetic bombardment. Every railgun in the fleet fired simultaneously. sending thousands of tungsten projectiles toward the orbital platforms at significant fractions of light speed. The platforms, designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks, simply disintegrated under the impact. Direct hits on 43 platforms, reported Captain Torres from his position, commanding the heavy weapons group. Defense grid is compromised. The real target was the planet itself. Commander Rodriguez led a squadron of fast attack ships directly toward the homeworld surface. Using a tactic that horrified every alien observer in the fleet, "Rodriguez, you're flying directly into their strongest defensive fire," Dr. Krell warned over the communications channel. "That's the plan," Rodriguez replied calmly. Her ship, equipped with the most advanced alien shields available, absorbed energy blast after energy blast as she dove toward the planet. "I'm giving them the biggest target they've ever seen." The Devourer homeworld concentrated its entire defensive output on Rodriguez's squadron, exactly as the humans had planned. While every energy weapon on the planet focused on the obvious threat, the real attack came from an unexpected direction. Master Sergeant Thompson, now commanding a stealth ship equipped with experimental cloaking technology, approached the planet from its shadow side. His target was not the heavily defended surface installations, but something the Devourers had never thought to protect: the quantum communication nexus that connected the homeworld to the collective consciousness. Approaching target, Thompson reported, "No enemy response. They still don't know I'm here." The quantum nexus was a crystalline structure deep within the planet's core, accessible only through a narrow chasm that the Devourers used for maintenance. Thompson's ship was barely small enough to fit through the opening. "This is insane even by human standards," Engineer Bren commented from the Fleet Command Center. The Helix Nebula had been a tourist destination before the war. Its swirling clouds of ionized gas created spectacular displays of color that attracted visitors from across the galaxy. Now it was a graveyard of ships and a feeding ground for Devourer scouts. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the modified cruiser Defiance, watching long-range sensors track the enemy fleet. 12 Devourer ships moved through the outer system, methodically consuming asteroids and space debris to fuel their growth. According to traditional Council doctrine, the human fleet should have established a defensive perimeter and waited for the enemy to come to them. Instead, they were about to do something no one in the galaxy had attempted in living memory: attack first. "All ships report ready," Communications Officer Park announced. The joint crews were still learning to work together, but 3 weeks of intensive training had created a functional fighting force. "Signal the fleet," Torres ordered. "Execute Plan Alpha." The first phase was pure deception. Automated drones equipped with energy signature generators began broadcasting false signals throughout the system. To Devour sensors, it would appear that a traditional Council fleet was taking defensive positions around the system's inhabited worlds. General Obokov commanded the second group from his flagship Resolution. His ships were equipped with the heaviest kinetic weapons they had been able to construct: railguns, capable of accelerating tungsten projectiles to 12% of light speed. "Deception drones are active," his weapons officer reported. "Enemy fleet is changing course to investigate." Meanwhile, the real attack force, led by Colonel Rivers, moved through the asteroid field using a technique that would have been impossible. With energy-based weapons, the human ships ran silent, their kinetic weapons producing no energy signatures that Devourer sensors could detect. "They're taking the bait," Rivers reported as he watched the enemy fleet converge on the drone signals. Just like Thompson predicted, Master Sergeant Thompson had spent days studying Devourer behavior patterns. The crystalline creatures were efficient predators, but their efficiency made them predictable. They always moved toward the largest concentration of energy signatures, expecting to find the most prey. Phase 2, Torres announced. The asteroid field erupted with kinetic fire. Tungsten projectiles moving at relativistic speeds struck Devourer ships with devastating effect. The crystalline holes, designed to absorb and redistribute energy, simply shattered under the impact of simple mass and velocity. The first Devourer ship to be hit stopped dead in space. Its hull cracked open like an eggshell, crystalline fragments scattered in all directions as the creature's collective consciousness struggled to understand what had happened. Direct hit on Target 7, reported Lieutenant Commander Davis from the gunship Hammer. Target destroyed. Confirmed kill on Target 7. Operations Officer Kim added from her position aboard Torres's ship. Enemy fleet is attempting to adapt formation, but adaptation was exactly what the humans had planned for. Phase 3 began as Captain Oak's squadron emerged from behind the nebula's gas clouds, hitting the Devourer formation from an unexpected angle. "This is wrong," Dr. Krell said from his observation position on the command ship. "The Devourers should be absorbing the kinetic energy by now. They should be adapting." "Can't adapt to physics," Thompson replied. "Energy can be converted and redirected. Mass is just mass. When something moving fast hits something solid, the solid thing breaks." The Devourer fleet tried to execute their traditional energy absorption defensive pattern, clustering together to share the burden of incoming attacks. Against energy weapons, this tactic had always been effective. Against kinetic projectiles, it simply made them easier targets. "Multiple hits on the cluster formation," Torres announced. 4 targets down, 3 damaged. General Volkov's heavy weapons group moved into position for the final phase. "All ships, prepare for close assault." The alien observers could barely believe what they were seeing. Human ships were deliberately moving into close combat range, where Devourer energy weapons would be most effective. It violated every principle of modern space combat. "They're going to get themselves killed," Engineer Bren said from the command center. "No," Ambassador Thane replied, his crystalline form reflecting the displays showing the battle. "Oh, there. Going to win?" The close assault was brutally effective. Human ships equipped with short-range kinetic weapons and enhanced shields engaged the Devourer survivors at ranges that would have been suicidal against any conventional enemy. But Devourer had never faced an enemy that could harm them, and their weapons were designed for absorption warfare rather than direct damage. "Target down," Captain Rodriguez reported, as her frigate Vengeance finished off a damaged Devourer with point-blank railgun fire. "That's the last of them." The silence on the command channel stretched for nearly a minute before Torres spoke again. "All ships report status." One by one, the human vessels checked in. 3 ships reported minor damage from Devourer energy weapons. No casualties, no losses. For the first time in 2 years, a Devourer fleet had been completely destroyed with 0 losses to the attacking force. "Impossible," Dr. Krell whispered, staring at the tactical display. "They were outnumbered 2 to 1. "They were predictable," Thompson corrected. "They did exactly what we expected them to do." The victory sent shockwaves through both sides of the war. News of the engagement spread through quantum communication networks faster than the human fleet could return to base. On council worlds that had been preparing for evacuation, populations began to hope for the first time in years. But the real impact was on the Devourer collective consciousness. For the first time in their species' existence, they had encountered an enemy that could not only resist them, but destroy them completely. "The collective is adapting," Dr. Krell reported 3 days later. "Our monitoring stations are detecting changes in Devourer behavior patterns throughout their territory." "What kind of changes?" Rivers asked. "They're becoming more cautious, less direct in their approaches. Some fleets have actually retreated from systems they were in the process of consuming." General Volkov studied the new intelligence reports. "Good. Caution makes them slower and less efficient. It also makes them more vulnerable to what we're planning next." The next phase of human warfare doctrine was even more alien to the galactic mindset. Instead of pressing their advantage with direct attacks, the humans began what they called a psychological campaign. "We're going to make them afraid," Captain Torres explained to a gathering of alien military leaders. "Not just of losing individual battles, but of the very concept of fighting us." "How do you instill fear in a collective consciousness?" Representative Nara asked. "Same way you instill fear in any predator," Torres replied. "You make them associate hunting with pain." The humans began broadcasting false intelligence through captured Devourer communication nodes. Fake fleet movements, non-existent weapon capabilities, fabricated battle reports flooded the collective consciousness with contradictory information. "This is remarkably sophisticated," Dr. Krell observed as he watched the deception operations. You're not just lying to them, you're making them doubt their own perceptions. Information warfare, Thompson explained. When they can't trust what their sensors tell them, they start making mistakes. And mistakes came quickly. Devourer fleets began avoiding systems where no human forces were present. They diverted resources to defend against attacks that never came. Most importantly, they started fragmenting their collective decision-making process as different parts of the network received conflicting information. The psychological pressure is working, Captain Okafor reported after analyzing intercepted Devourer communications. They're spending more energy on trying to understand our tactics than on actually fighting. But the humans knew that deception alone wouldn't win the war. The Devourer homeworld remained untouched, continuously producing new fleets to replace those that had been destroyed. As long as the core of their civilization existed, they could eventually adapt to any tactic. "We need to end this permanently," Rivers said during a strategy meeting with the Joint Command Staff, "and that means going after their home system." Alien commanders looked uncomfortable. An assault on the Devourer homeworld would require everything they had learned about human warfare, taken to its logical extreme. The homeworld is defended by thousands of ships and orbital platforms, Thane pointed out. Even with kinetic weapons, the casualties would be enormous. "Not if we do it right," Rivers replied. "But it's going to require every ship we can get, and tactics that even we haven't tried before." The planning for the final assault took weeks. Human tactical innovation combined with alien technology created strategies that neither side could have developed alone. All the key insight came from Dr. Krell's analysis of the Devourer homeworld itself. The research laboratory was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Crystalline formations hung in energy fields, while holographic displays showed molecular structures rotating in 3 dimensions. Dr. Krell led the group to a sealed chamber, where several fragments of Devourer material were being studied by alien scientists. These samples were collected from the Helix encounter 6 months ago, Dr. Krell explained, adjusting the chamber's containment field. They remain partially active even when separated from the main entity. Master Sergeant Thompson examined the crystal fragments through the transparent barrier. The pieces were about the size of dinner plates, with an oily rainbow sheen that seemed to shift and move. Even separated from their source, they pulsed with a faint internal light. Organic, Thompson observed. "Like they're still alive?" "The Devourers exist somewhere between life and machine," Engineer Brent explained. They process matter and energy like a biological organism, but their structure is more similar to our computer systems. Colonel Rivers studied the containment setup. "What happens if we test kinetic weapons on them?" "The testing chamber can simulate various weapons," Dr. Krell said, gesturing to a complex control panel. "What parameters would you like to try?" Thompson grinned. "Let's start simple. Can you simulate a rifle bullet hitting one of those pieces?" Dr. Krell made adjustments to the controls, and a holographic projectile appeared in the chamber. It struck one of the crystal fragments at high velocity. The alien scientists expected to see the familiar pattern of energy absorption and structural reinforcement. Instead, the crystal fragment shattered into dozens of smaller pieces. The silence in the laboratory was complete. "Run it again, General," Volkov said quietly. They tested larger projectiles, explosive rounds, and armor-piercing shells. Every single kinetic impact caused catastrophic damage to the Devourer material. The crystals, designed to absorb and redirect energy, had no defense against simple physical force. "Incredible," Dr. Krell whispered, staring at the shattered remains. "We've been fighting them with energy weapons for 2 years, and all this time, a simple projectile could destroy them." Captain Okafor was already thinking tactically. "We need to scale this up. What kind of kinetic weapons can your technology produce?" Engineer Bryn pulled up manufacturing specifications on his display. "We have mass drivers used for asteroid mining, electromagnetic launchers for cargo pods. The technology exists, but we've never considered weaponizing it. We need to think bigger than that," Rivers said. "Show me your ship designs." For the next several hours, human military leaders worked with alien engineers to redesign their approach to warfare. The aliens had focused on energy efficiency and defensive capabilities. The humans thought in terms of offensive power and tactical flexibility. "Your ships are too specialized," Thompson explained, studying holographic blueprints.
This one is
Built for long-range energy bombardment, but it can't maneuver in close combat. This other one has great shields but weak offensive capability. We designed them for our traditional warfare, Thane said. Long-range engagements with minimal casualties. Not going to work against the Devourers, Volkov replied. They get stronger when you hit them with energy weapons. You need to get close and hit them hard with kinetic force. Dr. Krell was fascinated by the human approach to weapons design. Your species seems to have evolved specifically for warfare. We evolved to survive, Rivers corrected. On Earth, everything tries to kill you. Other humans, predators, diseases, natural disasters, resource scarcity. We learned to fight because fighting was the only way to live. But surely your civilization advanced beyond such primitive concerns. Captain Okafor laughed. Dr. Krell, we were in the middle of a world war when you summoned us. Our most advanced technology was designed to kill other humans more efficiently. The cultural gap was enormous. The alien species had achieved peace through cooperation and resource abundance. Humans had achieved advancement through competition and conflict. Neither side fully understood the other, but both recognized what they could learn. Show us your battle recordings again, Thompson requested. I want to see exactly how the Devourers fight. The holographic displays showed dozens of engagements between Council forces and Devourer swarms. The alien tactics followed predictable patterns, established long-range firing positions. Engage with maximum energy output, retreat when shields failed. The Devourers simply absorbed the energy and advanced until they could consume the alien ships. You're fighting them like they're another civilized species, Volkov observed. But they're not. They're predators. You don't negotiate with predators. You either kill them or they kill you. That seems unnecessarily violent, Representative Nara interjected. Her plant-like form rustled with discomfort. Violence is a tool. Rivers said bluntly. Devourers are using it against you whether you acknowledge it or not. The difference is they're using it effectively. Thompson was studying the tactical patterns. They always take the most direct route to their target. No feints, no misdirection, no complex strategies. They're like sharks. They sense food and go straight for it. That makes them predictable, Okafor added. We can use that. Dr. Krell looked confused. How can predictability be an advantage for the enemy? Because if you know what they're going to do, you can plan for it, Rivers explained. We call it deception. You make them think they know where you are or what you're doing, then you do something else. The concept of military deception was completely foreign to the alien commanders. Their entire approach to conflict was based on direct confrontation and superior technology. The idea of deliberately misleading an enemy was not just unfamiliar, it was almost incomprehensible. You're suggesting we lie to them? Engineer Bren asked. I'm suggesting we use their predictability against them, Volkov said. They expect you to fight the way you always have. When we start using kinetic weapons and unpredictable tactics, they won't know how to respond. Over the following days, human and alien engineers worked together to retrofit council ships with kinetic weapons. The first prototypes were crude, but effective massive railguns that could accelerate metal projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The aliens provided advanced materials and power systems, while humans provided targeting systems and tactical software. The ammunition alone presents interesting challenges, Dr. Krell noted as they watched test firings. Simple metal projectiles are most effective, but we can enhance them with alien materials for greater impact. Thompson was more interested in the psychological aspects. Dr. Krell, do the Devourers communicate with each other? They share a collective consciousness. Information spreads instantly through their network. Good. That means when we start winning battles, they'll all know about it immediately. Fear spreads through connected minds faster than through isolated individuals. The Devourers don't experience fear, Thane said. They will, Thompson replied. Grimly, every predator learns fear when it meets something that can hurt it. The first joint training exercises revealed just how different the two approaches to warfare were. Human soldiers practiced aggressive maneuvers that brought them dangerously close to enemy positions. Alien crews preferred defensive formations that maximized their technological advantages. You need to get comfortable with acceptable losses, Rivers told a group of alien officers. Sometimes winning requires sacrifice. The concept horrified them. Alien military doctrine was based on preserving life above all other considerations. The idea that victory might require deliberately accepting casualties was almost unthinkable. Can you quantify acceptable losses? Thane asked. How do you decide which lives are worth sacrificing? You don't decide which specific lives, Okafor explained. You calculate whether the tactical advantage gained is worth the statistical probability of casualties. It's mathematics, not personal choice. Dr. Krell was studying human battle records that they had recovered from the vehicles pulled through the portal. Your species has been refining these concepts for millennia. This level of tactical sophistication is remarkable. We had good teachers, Volkov said darkly. Every enemy that tried to destroy us taught us something new about survival. The joint preparations continued. Both sides began to understand what they were building together. The aliens provided technology that humans could never have imagined. Humans provided tactical innovation that aliens had never needed to develop. Neither side could defeat the Devourers alone, but together they might have a chance. The first test would come soon. Devourer scouts had been detected moving toward the inner systems, and the Council had decided that the time for defensive preparations was over. If kinetic weapons and human tactics were going to work, they needed to prove it in actual combat. Are you ready for this? Dr. Krell asked Rivers as they prepared for the first joint operation. Rivers looked at the hybrid fleet they had created, alien ships equipped with human weapons, crewed by mixed teams who barely understood each other's languages, but shared a common enemy? No, he said honestly. We're going to do it anyway. That's what humans do. The first few minutes were pure chaos. Colonel Rivers dove behind an overturned jeep as energy bolts flew overhead, though they seemed to splash harmlessly against some kind of invisible barrier. His radio crackled with confused reports from his men, mixed with what sounded like Russian and Chinese voices, shouting orders in their own languages. "Hold your fire," he yelled, though he wasn't sure anyone could hear him over the noise. Defensive positions only. The beings they were facing didn't look like any enemy he had ever seen. Some were tall and crystalline, reflecting light like living gemstones. Others appeared to be made of metal and silicon, their movements precise and mechanical. There were creatures that looked like walking trees, and others that seemed to be swimming through the air in environmental suits filled with water. General Volkov's voice came through the radio, heavily accented but clear. "American Colonel, what is your assessment of situation?" "Unknown," General Rivers replied, watching as more energy bolts harmlessly struck the barrier around them. "These things don't seem to be trying very hard to kill us, more like they're testing our defenses, Captain." Okafor's voice joined the conversation. "My sensors are picking up some kind of translation field being established. I think they're trying to communicate." Rivers looked up as the energy fire stopped completely. One of the crystalline beings was approaching slowly, its hands raised. In what might have been a universal gesture of peace, when it spoke, the words came out as perfectly understandable English, though there was an odd musical quality to the voice. "Please do not be afraid," the being said. "We mean you no harm. I am Ambassador Thane of the Galactic Council. We have brought you here by accident, and we wish to explain." Rivers slowly stood up, keeping his rifle lowered but ready. Around the chamber, he could see other human soldiers doing the same. The sight before him was impossible. They were clearly no longer on Earth. The chamber they were in was vast, with walls that seemed to be made of some kind of energy rather than solid matter. Through transparent sections, he could see stars that formed no constellations he recognized. "Where are we?" Rivers asked. "You are aboard a Council research station in what you might call deep space," Thane replied. "We were attempting to summon legendary warriors to help us fight an enemy that threatens our entire galaxy. Instead, our calculations were wrong, and we accidentally connected to your world." More human voices joined the conversation as the translation field expanded. General Volkov emerged from behind a tank, his weathered face showing the same mixture of confusion and tactical alertness that Rivers felt Captain Okafor approached from the other side, her soldiers maintaining a loose perimeter while keeping their weapons ready. "You're saying you kidnapped us?" Volkov asked bluntly. "Not intentionally," said another alien, this one appearing to be some kind of amphibious creature with large, intelligent eyes. "I am Dr. Krell, and I must take responsibility for this error. The ancient texts we were following were apparently inaccurate." Rivers looked around at his men, then at the soldiers from other nations who had been pulled through with them. They had been in the middle of fighting each other just minutes ago, but now they faced something far stranger than any earthly conflict. "How many of us did you bring through?" Dr. Krell consulted a device that projected numbers in the air.
"Approximately
12,000 of your kind, along with various vehicles and equipment." The portal remained open for nearly 10 minutes before we could stabilize it. 12,000, Captain Okafor repeated. "From how many different militaries?" "Our scans indicate representatives from at least 15 different national groups," Dr. Krell said. "We apologize for interrupting what appeared to be some kind of territorial dispute." World War III, Rivers said grimly. "We've been fighting over the last habitable regions on Earth. Climate change, resource depletion, population pressure. Our world was dying." The aliens exchanged glances, or what Rivers assumed were glances given their various anatomies. Dr. Krell spoke first. "Perhaps this accident was not entirely unfortunate then. Your world was facing extinction, and our galaxy faces the same threat." Thane activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images appeared showing vast crystalline entities consuming planets, turning entire star systems into lifeless voids.
else.
"The Devourers have been advancing through our territory for 2 years. They absorb energy and convert matter into more of themselves. Every weapon we possess only makes them stronger." Rivers studied the images with a professional eye. "What have you tried?" "Everything," said another alien, introducing itself as Chief Engineer Bren. "Plasma weapons, antimatter bombs, quantum disruptors. The creatures simply absorb the energy and use it to reproduce. They're completely immune to our technology." General Volkov stepped closer to examine the holographic displays. "Show me their attack patterns." For the next hour, the aliens displayed everything they knew about the Devourers. Rivers found himself working alongside Volkov and Okafor, their earlier conflicts forgotten in the face of this new enemy. The alien military commanders joined the discussion, sharing tactical data and battle reports. "They're predictable," Okafor observed after reviewing several battle recordings. "They always take the most direct approach to consume energy sources, because they're efficient," Volkov added. "Like machines, no creativity, no adaptation beyond their basic function." Rivers was thinking about something else entirely. "Dr. Krell, you said they absorb energy. What about kinetic force?" The amphibian scientist looked confused. I don't understand the question." Rivers picked up a piece of debris from the floor and threw it at the wall. It struck with a solid thunk and fell to the ground. "Physical impact. Mass times velocity. Not energy, just matter hitting matter." "Such primitive methods were abandoned millennia ago," Engineer Bren said dismissively. "Kinetic weapons are inefficient compared to energy-based systems." "But do the Devourers absorb kinetic impact?" Rivers pressed. Dr. Krell was already pulling up data on his devices. We never tested that. Our entire military doctrine evolved beyond kinetic weapons before the Devourers appeared." The humans exchanged glances. Captain Okafor was the first to speak. "You're telling me that your entire galaxy forgot how to throw rocks?" "Essentially, yes," Thane admitted. "We have been a peaceful confederation for so long that we developed beyond the need for primitive warfare." General Volkov laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You developed past the point where you could defend yourselves." Dr. Krell was studying his scans of the human weapons. "These projectile weapons of yours, they operate on kinetic principles? Bullets, shells, missiles, rivers?" "Confirmed." "Chemical propellants accelerating metal projectiles?" "Some of our newer weapons use electromagnetic acceleration. But it's the same principle, hit the target with something moving fast." "And you believe this might be effective against the Devourers?" Rivers looked at the images of the crystalline creatures. "It's like they're made of some kind of crystal matrix. In my experience, crystals don't handle impact very well." Thane's harmonic voice took on an urgent tone. Would you be willing to test this theory? We have devourer remains in our research labs. Before we start testing anything, Captain Okafor interjected, we need to discuss terms. You brought us here by accident, but you're asking us to fight your war. Dr. Krell looked uncomfortable. We cannot return you to your world immediately. The portal technology is beyond our current understanding, and your planet is extremely distant. Even if you could send us back, Volkov said quietly, we'd be returning to a dying world and a war that serves no purpose. Rivers thought about Earth, the poisoned oceans, the burning cities, the endless fighting over scraps. Then he looked at the vast chamber around them, a technology that seemed like magic. At the possibility of fighting for something that actually mattered. If we help you, he said, what do we get in return? A home, Thane replied without hesitation. Full citizenship in the Galactic Council, your own worlds to colonize. Technology to heal your damaged planet if you choose to return. And the chance to ensure that what happened to your world never happens again. The three human commanders looked at each other. Around the chamber, they could hear their soldiers talking in dozens of languages. But the tone was the same. Curiosity, hope, and the recognition that this might be the chance they had all been fighting for without knowing it. All right, Rivers, said finally. Let's go see what rocks can do to your crystal problem. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 3 days now. Representatives from 47 different species sat around the massive circular chamber, their voices mixing into a symphony of panic and desperation. Dr. Krell adjusted his breathing apparatus and looked at the holographic displays showing the latest reports from the Outer Rim territories. 3 more star systems had gone dark in the past week. The Devourers were winning, Ambassador. Thane's crystalline body reflected the red warning lights as he stood to address the assembly. His species had been the first to encounter the Devourers 2 years ago, and only a handful of his people had escaped to warn the galaxy. The situation has become critical, he announced, his voice carrying the harmonic tones that made the core species natural diplomats. Our conventional weapons are completely ineffective. Every energy blast we fire at them only makes them stronger. Dr. Krell watched the other representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. The amphibious scientist had spent months studying the enemy, trying to understand how creatures made of living crystal could consume entire planets. The Devourers absorbed any form of energy directed at them, converting it into fuel for their expansion. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, quantum disruptors, nothing worked. The enemy simply grew stronger with each attack. We must consider evacuation protocols for the remaining outer systems, suggested Representative Nara from the Peaceful Verdant Collective. Her plant-like appendages rustled with nervous energy. Perhaps we can establish a defensive perimeter around the core worlds. And then what? Thane's harmonics turned sharp with frustration. We retreat further and further until they consume everything. These creatures don't negotiate. They don't communicate. They simply devour and multiply. Dr. Krell had been working on a desperate solution for weeks. Deep in the archives of the ancient Primarch ruins, his team had discovered references to something called the warrior summoning. The texts were old, older than any known civilization, written in a language that their best translators could barely understand. But the meaning seemed clear enough. In times of ultimate crisis, beings of incredible power could be called from beyond the void to defend the innocent. I may have found something, Dr. Krell said, rising from his seat. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to him. In the Primarch archives, there are references to an ancient ritual, a way to summon warriors from another dimension, beings specifically designed for combat against impossible odds. The silence stretched on for several moments before Representative Nara spoke. You're talking about mythology, Dr. Krell. Ancient stories and legends, perhaps the scientist admitted. But the Primarch were advanced beyond anything we've achieved. Their technology was so sophisticated we still can't understand most of it. If anyone could have developed interdimensional summoning, it would have been them. Thane leaned forward, his crystalline features catching the light. What would this ritual require? Dr. Krell activated his personal display, showing the translated texts his team had been working on. Massive amounts of energy focused through a dimensional gateway. The power requirements alone would drain our primary generators for days. And there's no guarantee it would work, or what exactly we might summon. The texts mention warriors, added Dr. Krell's assistant, a young researcher named Finn from the aquatic depth dwellers. Beings described as relentless, adaptable, and capable of defeating any enemy through pure determination and tactical innovation. Ambassador Thane looked around the chamber at the desperate faces of his fellow representatives. Where dangerous could it be? We're already facing extinction. Vote was closer than Dr. Krell had expected, but it passed. Within hours, every available ship was being redirected to the Council's most secure research facility in the Sanctuary system. The massive space station had been built for exactly this kind of dangerous experiment, far from any populated worlds. In case something went wrong, Dr. Krell supervised the installation of the ritual components personally. Ancient Primarch crystals were arranged in precise geometric patterns around a central summoning chamber, energy conduits thick as tree trunks connected the crystals to the station's fusion reactors. The translations had been checked and double-checked by every linguist in the galaxy. The dimensional barriers are extremely thin here, reported Chief Engineer Bren, a methodical being from the Silicon Collective.
Nice.
If we're going to punch through to another dimension, this is our best chance. 3 days later, everything was ready. Dr. Krell stood in the control room overlooking the summoning chamber, surrounded by the galaxy's best scientists and most powerful leaders. Ambassador Thane had insisted on being present, along with military commanders from a dozen different species. Begin the sequence, Dr. Krell ordered. The crystals began to glow with an eerie blue light as massive amounts of energy flowed through them. The air in the chamber started to shimmer and distort. Reality itself seemed to bend as the dimensional barriers weakened. Dr. Krell watched his instruments carefully, making tiny adjustments to keep the energy flow stable. Then something went wrong. The readings spiked far beyond what the calculations had predicted. Instead of opening a small, controlled gateway to the dimension of legendary warriors, the ritual was tearing a massive hole in space-time itself. Dr. Krell frantically tried to shut down the sequence. But the crystals had taken on a life of their own. It's pulling in the wrong direction, shouted Engineer Bren over the rising hum of overloaded systems. We're not summoning from the mythical dimension. We're connecting to somewhere else entirely. The portal erupted into existence with a sound like reality breaking. Instead of the swirling energy vortex they had expected, the gateway showed a view of a small blue and green planet. But this wasn't a peaceful world. The surface was covered in explosions and the streaks of weapons fire. Some kind of massive conflict was raging across multiple continents. Where is that? Ambassador Thane asked, his harmonics tight with concern. Dr. Krell was already running scans on the planet. It's in a remote spiral arm, about 50,000 light-years from here. The inhabitants appear to be engaged in some kind of global war. Before anyone could react, the portal began pulling things through from the other side. Military vehicles appeared first, primitive metal contraptions with tracks and wheels, trailing smoke and clearly designed for combat. Then came aircraft, their wings torn and engines sputtering as they materialized in the chamber's artificial atmosphere. Finally came the beings themselves. They were bipedal, roughly humanoid in shape, but much smaller than the legendary warriors the texts had described. They wore crude armor made of metal and fabric, and carried weapons that seemed almost primitive compared to galactic technology. Many of them were shouting in what appeared to be dozens of different languages, their faces showing confusion and aggressive alertness. Dr. Krell stared at the chaos in the summoning chamber as more and more of these beings poured through the portal. They immediately began taking defensive positions behind their vehicles, pointing their primitive weapons in all directions while barking orders at each other in their incomprehensible languages. These can't be the legendary warriors, Engineer, Bryn said quietly. They're so small, so primitive. Look at those weapons. They're chemical propellant projectile throwers. We had more advanced technology 20,000 years ago. But Dr. Krell noticed something the others missed. Despite their obvious confusion and the fact that they had just been transported across the galaxy, These beings were already organizing themselves. Different groups that had clearly been fighting each other moments before were now establishing a perimeter and attempting to communicate with each other. Maybe, Dr. Krell said slowly, we summoned exactly what we needed after all. It's Thompson, Rivers replied. If anyone can pull this off, it's him. Thompson's ship descended through layers of crystalline architecture, dodging automated defenses that were designed to stop energy-based intruders, not physical objects moving through three-dimensional space. When he reached the Nexus chamber, he found exactly what Dr. Krell had predicted, the central processing core that coordinated the entire Devourer collective. Target acquired, Thompson announced, beginning final approach. What happened next would be debated by military historians for centuries. Instead of using his ship's weapons, Thompson did something that no tactical manual had ever contemplated. He set his ship's reactor to overload and rammed it directly into the quantum nexus. The explosion was not large by stellar standards, but it was precisely targeted. The quantum communication network that had coordinated millions of Devourer ships across the galaxy simply stopped working. In an instant, the collective consciousness became millions of individual entities with no way to share information or coordinate their actions. The Nexus is down, Dr. Krell reported, his voice filled with amazement. The collective has been severed. Across the homeworld's surface, Devourer installations stopped firing in perfect coordination and began operating as independent units. Orbital platforms that had been sharing targeting data suddenly found themselves unable to communicate with each other. The planet's defenses, optimized for collective action, became chaotic and ineffective. All ships, final assault, Admiral Chen ordered. The joint fleet descended on the no-uncoordinated Devourer homeworld like a storm of metal and determination. Without their collective consciousness to guide them, the individual Devourers fell back on basic survival instincts that made them even more predictable. Captain Okafor led the ground assault teams that landed on the planet's surface. Her soldiers, equipped with kinetic weapons and alien technology, fought through crystalline corridors against enemies that no longer shared information about human tactics. The individual Devourers are actually quite vulnerable, she reported as her teams secured key installations. Without their collective intelligence, they're just large, slow targets. The battle for the homeworld lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the threat that had consumed dozens of star systems and terrorized the galaxy for years had been reduced to scattered, unconnected fragments that posed no danger to anyone. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking down at the conquered Devourer homeworld. The crystalline planet still pulsed with light. But now, it was the light of individual fires rather than a coordinated network. Fleet status report, she requested. We've lost 43 ships, her operations officer reported. Casualties are estimated at just under 3,000. Chen nodded grimly. By the standards of galactic warfare, the losses were catastrophic. By human standards, they had won a total victory against impossible odds, with remarkably few casualties. Dr. Krell, what's the status of Devourer forces throughout the galaxy? Oh, the alien scientist consulted his instruments. Without the homeworld Nexus, they're reverting to individual behavior patterns. Most are simply shutting down. A few are attempting to continue their original missions. But without coordination, they're easily avoided or destroyed by local defense forces. 6 months later, Admiral Chen stood in the same council chamber where humans had first appeared. But now, she wore the insignia of the newly created Galactic Defense Force. The chamber had been modified to accommodate representatives from a dozen human colonies. The Devourer threat has been officially declared extinct, Ambassador Thane announced to the assembled representatives. The last confirmed sighting was 3 weeks ago, and that individual was peacefully contained and relocated to a research facility. The transformation of galactic civilization had been rapid and profound. Human military doctrine was now taught at academies throughout Council space. Kinetic weapons had been integrated into every fleet. Most importantly, the concept of proactive defense, striking enemies before they could threaten civilian populations, had become standard policy. But the changes went both directions. Human colonies now used alien technology to restore damaged ecosystems. Earth itself, though still distant, being healed by terraforming techniques that could repair centuries of environmental damage. Human children learned alien mathematics and philosophy alongside human history and tactics. Dr. Krell approached Chen after the official ceremony ended. "I've been analyzing the cultural exchange data," he said. "The integration has been remarkably successful." "Both sides had something the other needed," Chen replied. "We taught you how to fight. You taught us how to build something worth fighting for." Through the chamber's transparent walls, they could see the construction of the new frontier fleets, ships that combined alien technology with human tactical innovation. These vessels would carry mixed crews to unexplored regions of the galaxy, ready to face whatever threats they might encounter. "Do you ever regret it?" Dr. Krell asked. "Leaving your homeworld for this unknown future?" Chen considered the question while watching a group of human and alien children playing together in the station's recreational area. They were playing a game that combined human chess with alien pattern recognition, creating strategies that neither species could have developed alone. "We didn't leave our home," she said finally. "We found it." The galaxy had indeed been changed forever by the aliens' mistake. What they thought would be a temporary solution to an immediate crisis had become the foundation of a new kind of civilization. One where the peaceful wisdom of ancient species combined with the adaptive resilience of humanity to create something stronger than either could achieve alone. As the representatives filed out of the chamber to return to their worlds and colonies, they carried with them the knowledge that the galaxy was no longer a place where civilizations simply waited for threats to destroy them. They had learned to fight back, to take risks for the greater good, and to never again forget that sometimes the greatest victories come from the most unlikely sources. The humans had been summoned by accident, but they had chosen to stay by design. And in doing so, they had ensured that the galaxy would never forget the day when everything changed.